Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
My name is FPL Prince.
Excellent. Welcome everyone. So I'm going to get something out of the way first. So obviously we know about the news about the European Super League. It's a very fast-moving situation, as we found out tonight just before we came on air. So we're obviously aware of the response from fans and all the footballing bodies. So, but how does it affect FPL? Well, we don't know. And it's not really our place to know because we're not in the business of speculating on these things. But what we are in the business of is looking at Game Week 33 and beyond. So that's what we're after, really. That's what we're here for. We're going to offer some advice there. So we won't be mentioning the European Super League there. So let's carry on. Seb, what's coming up in the show?
Oh, what is coming up? So we're currently midway through a game week. It feels a bit like an international one, doesn't it? Or something along those lines. Football is happening. There's a few games left, but we will look ahead to 33. There's a blank in 33 with a few teams missing out. There was actually a blank this week, I believe, as well. But no one really cared about that one. And then there's more doubles, more blanks to come as we move towards the end of the season. We have Tottenham, who have let their manager go. And while I think the key assets are possibly going to remain the same there, we're going to have a look to see if anything changes, maybe what we should do with those assets or what we shouldn't do with them, more importantly. We will also be looking at differentials. So it's kind of differential time in the season, isn't it? People chasing leads or trying to keep leads. So, Joe, you are looking at attacking defenders differentials for us, I believe. And speaking of differentials, we have a differential to pick at the end. We have fixtures to frisk, transfer and captain plans. But first, we're looking at teams from this week, I believe.
Definitely. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at our game weeks and see how we've been doing. So if you just bear with me a second, let's have a look. Who is top? It's me, but not by much. We're all much of a muchness.
Who is top? Oh, it's me.
Oh, it's me. But when we see all of our teams, you'll realise it's not like there's quite a small gap. So I'm currently on 48 points at the moment. And so I've got Mendy in goal, Shaw, Alonso, who's playing tonight. We're recording and we're streaming just before the Chelsea-Brighton match. We've got Cody, I've got Fernandes, Jota, Lingard, Salah, Son, Iheanacho, Kane, who's my captain, looks like he's not playing. So we'll talk about Spurs, as Seb was saying a bit later. I've got Forster, Chris Wood, Phillips, who has now got an injury, annoying, and I've got Veltman on my bench. So I don't think I'm going to need any of those guys, that bench there. So 48, few players to go. We've got a few more matches to go. So we're dragging out this week. So that's who's next up. Seb. 43. This is what I mean. It's like I've got 48. Whoop-de-doo. Got 43. So 45 really, because Rafinha didn't play. So Bamford will come in off your bench. So you've currently got Lloris, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Luca Dean, Cancelo, Jota, Rafinha, Son, De Bruyne, Gundogan, and Kane, your captain. And as I said, Bamford coming off the bench. So you must be pretty okay, because you've got a differential there, as in lots of City, so one up on the wildcarders perhaps.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, we'll see whether all those City players play, or in De Bruyne's case, if he's fit. Obviously, they've played midweek and have got plenty of matches coming up. So, not even midweek, the weekend, but then playing in midweek. So I'm not sure. Maybe it'll pay off. I wasn't particularly holding them to try and be clever for a differential. I've just had them when I don't want to take a -8 to lose good players. So I've been happy to hold. Realistically, I expect to end this week a captain haul behind the Kane triple captainers. I think the rest of the team is solid enough. There's a few bases covered. I've captained Kane. I don't have the triple captain. So if those people end up at 80 and I end up on 68, 70, it's probably about par for the course.
Okay, and FPL Prince, Connor, 41. So once again, as you can see, we're all much of a muchness really. And just for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, you got Mendy, got Shaw, Diaz, Rudiger, Fernandes, Son, Salah, Jota, Lingard, Kane, your captain, with everyone. Over 200% effective ownership. Iheanacho, and then on your bench you've got Forster. So like me, Mendy's out, Forster's probably going to come in. So yeah, you must be fairly happy. It was a double game week, I suppose, so we should have been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I'm at about kind of 50k right now, and it's kind of gone as well as you can hope scale. I think the real disappointment for me is Salah. I think just being benched in that game, I thought, this could be a real chance to kind of push up. And there's a few people who've sold Salah now, so he's not kind of the asset that he used to be. But on the whole, I'm happy with my team. I think the only glaring obvious miss would be Trent. But apart from that, it's well balanced. It's a reasonable score, and I think we're all going to be reasonably close this week, aren't we? So if you're not taking hits, just keep those little risers going, and then, like you say, later on we'll try and find some differentials to keep pushing us up.
Okay, I just want to point out, I'm getting a flashing message from YouTube here saying, unfortunately, the live chat has been disconnected. And unable to connect to the chat, and please try again later. But so that seems to be an issue with YouTube there. We haven't disconnected it, as far as I know, we haven't. And so bear with us. The chat might come back, but if not, feel free to leave your comments afterwards. But we're still streaming away. So yeah, I just want to also mention, so we've got full of a little bit of news today. We've got a big survey that's taking place. Az is arranging that. So Az has got lots of experience running surveys and these types of things. And so he's doing stuff for Fantasy Football Scout about how it can be improved. So there's lots and lots of questions there about the site, all the gadgets and tools in the members area and the stats, but also looking at things like all the content as well. So things about the Scoutcast as well, and video content and articles and those types of things. So do head over to the site for more. And I pinned a link in my Twitter feed, so have a look at my Twitter account, and it's the pinned tweet there. It's a survey, so click on that, and there's all sorts of links to go into that as well. So yeah, let's move on to the first topic. Spurs under new management, I've got written here. So Seb, what's that about? I'll put a picture of Mourinho looking glum with their fixtures coming up, so we can see they've got nothing in 33, but a whole bunch of good fixtures coming up from 34. So yeah, take it away, Seb.
Yeah, just to say, Joe, as well, I think I might be lagging a little bit. So if I do or whatever, just my apologies. By all means, please jump in and take over if I do. But yeah, Spurs, we mentioned them early on. And I think we probably all had a few Spurs players to start with. And maybe we're considering dumping or carrying. Things have changed. They've got a new manager and okay fixtures, as you mentioned, if we can navigate this week. So a couple of questions to kick us off. We have from the rumour mill. Is it worth taking Son out for a 1 week midfield punt in game week 33? Should we bring him back in game week 34? And from Sam, is it worth taking Kane out in game week 33? And if so, who to? And is it worth bringing him back in game week 34? So two nice questions dovetailing there. I've got a few. I mean, we went through Spurs a bit last week as well. So nothing massive has changed there. Kane and Son are the same players they were, although under different management. I will just say beforehand, though, that personally, my opinion, it feels a bit like one of those situations where, just mentioning before the show, in the trading world or what have you, there are sayings about the best trade you can often make is to not make a trade. And it almost feels like one of those situations where I want to do something. I want that little endorphin rush, especially seeing as this is a long game week and I want my little hit of FPL. If I make a move, if I make a transfer, if I do something to change my situation, I'll feel good about it. I wonder if we should maybe just wait. Spurs have got an interim manager who, yes, he talks about attacking, he talks about loving Gareth Bale, but we don't actually know if he's any good. It's all well and good to talk about attacking, but if you can't keep the ball or what have you, you can't attack. And then after that, we don't really know what's going to happen, both on the manager front, on the macro side with Tottenham. So I wonder if you have Spurs players or don't, it's maybe better just holding on to them. I don't know what you two think on that sort of strategy front before we get into some stats and whatnot.
Okay, well, Connor can go first as the guest.
I think a bit like the Super League, you shouldn't make the move. So yeah, I think with Kane and Son, with Kane, obviously if the injury is longer than we think it might be, then yes, there's an argument to move him out, isn't there? But I think if he's fit, and I do think it sounds like he's going to play in the cup final, I think he's a definite keep. He's probably the best asset in the game at the moment. He's the most captainable player for the final 4 game weeks. He's definitely not a sell, not even for 1 game week, to be honest. I think Son is a little bit more of an argument. That I think because they've got Sheffield United straight afterwards and Leeds, and they're fighting for Europe. I just think put your moves elsewhere. I just don't think there's any need. I mean, what do you think about it, Joe?
Well, I was prepared to dump Son, and I thought Kane will do. This was under Mourinho. So as we had known, I mean, you don't need to be an expert to know that under Mourinho, Kane and Son have been incredible. Kane in particular, Kane's having an incredible season. He's assisting, scoring. He's an absolute FPL gift this season. But that could change. I don't think it will change under the new manager in terms of that he will become bad suddenly. He is injured at the moment, so that's something I want to monitor. Especially with the cup final coming up. I don't know if we're going to get anything concrete with it. I think it's going to be a bit Dean Smith about this, and it's going to be like, oh, we hope he's getting fit, and it could rumble on a little bit. But yeah, going back to Mourinho's gone, so I'm thinking that the team itself are going to be more attacking. There's going to be less emphasis on defence, and often they were quite poor at defence anyway. So that's gone. The comments from Ryan Mason I like. Two comments I particularly like. One is that he is absolutely enamoured by Gareth Bale. When he was a player at Spurs, he absolutely rates Gareth Bale, thinks he's wonderful. And the other thing is that he has said that he wants to play the Spurs way, in an attacking way, which is that kind of way that clubs like to think they've got a particular style. Like, say, for example, West Ham, they will go back to that sort of mid to late 60s Bobby Moore type style they've got there, but I like that thing as someone with two attacking assets. That's what I like. What I've got here is some season stats here. So this is all this season. So this is what's been happening under Mourinho. As we can see, Kane absolutely top, and I've sorted this by minutes per expected stats, so assists or goals or expected goal involvement. And what this shows is not only how wonderful Kane is and Son near the top, but Bale doing really well. So when Bale's getting minutes, he's taking advantage of them. He's creating a chance, a minutes per chance, at least every 28.5 minutes. So on average, say 3 every match if he can last that match. And Ali as well. Ali is quite interesting. He's getting a chance every 77 minutes, which is reasonably high up. And minutes per expected goal every 2 hours, 211 minutes there. So it shows you that some of the other players that could get, if they got time, if they could last 90 minutes or 80 minutes instead of just 20-minute cameo, they could do you a job, like Ali, like Bale. And suddenly I'm slightly interested in them. So going back to the fixtures, they've got Sheffield United and then Leeds, which is, I would say, tricky now. Wolves, Villa at home, and then Leicester at the end. So out of those fixtures, they've got 3 really good fixtures out of those 5. And then going back to the season stats, they've got all these attacking players. They've been sitting on the bench or not doing much. So I'm a bit... Yeah, I'd never wait and see. Going back to what Seb said originally, sometimes doing nothing might be the best thing, because I want to see what's going on with them. Is that? I mean, yeah, I think you cracked it there with Seb. Spurs, wait and see.
I guess the thing that interests me, you mentioned, Ryan Mason making some statements which are encouraging, but frankly, I don't know what he's like as a manager, or if I do, there's not that much evidence to back it up. So he can say what he likes, and that is good to hear. But I'm going to need to see it say many things in the past and either do the opposite or fail to actually implement what they're trying to do. Like I said, saying you're going to attack is all well and good, but if you can't get and keep the ball or build a sufficient attack, that doesn't matter that much. So for me, rather than maybe focusing on Ryan Mason and Tottenham, I was looking at with and without Bale. As you say, it sounds like Bale is going to come back into the side. I think most people probably don't have Bale now. They either moved him to Son or moved him on to someone else. I know I did. Kind of wish I still had him. So maybe it's worth thinking him, wait this week. Obviously, they're not playing. Let's have a little look going forward. So firstly, looking at Spurs with and without Bale. So when I say without, this is when Mourinho dropped him. There may have been a few minutes here and there, but give or take, he wasn't involved in their play. It's a small sample size. So without him, it's game week 28 to 32, which for reference was Arsenal, Villa, Newcastle, Man United, and Everton so far this week. And then with him, it was 25 to 27, although 2 in 26. So it was West Ham, Burnley, Fulham, and Crystal Palace. So not the biggest sample size, and of course, different strengths of teams in there. But with Gareth Bale in those earlier fixtures, Tottenham were 3rd in the league for mins per XG, Brighton were top in that period. I'll note, Joe.
Joe, be happy.
But then without Gareth Bale, over the 28 to 32 period, they were down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th. So not great. Defensively as well, I do believe they dropped off. But obviously maybe that's more of a, top for XGC considered in that period and about mid-table for the earlier period. But maybe that's less to do with Gareth Bale. Also with Mourinho leaving, we know he likes defence, but actually he wasn't maybe doing that good a job of it. So I'm not sure all that much will change on that front. He was maybe relying on Kane and Son, which won't change. So then looking at Kane and Son, speaking of those two, with Gareth Bale, Heung-min Son had 0.56 XGI per 90, whereas Gareth Bale had 0.89. And I think we saw that really. Son went into that more supporting role, sure, creating assists, but probably lower threat overall, whereas Gareth Bale maybe took over a bit. And then without him, Son actually got even worse with 0.3. So we possibly saw him regress even further. Striker-wise, obviously, Harry Kane's great in both. But with Gareth Bale, he had exactly 1 XGI per 90. And without him, he had 0.88. But if you take into account fixtures, for example, losing to Man United, maybe there's not that much in it. So then comparing to the fixtures, I looked at, and again, such small sample sizes, but I looked at Tottenham 4, Crystal Palace 1, and Tottenham 1, Man United 3. Looking at heat maps, there's not a huge difference. Gareth Bale gets a lot of touches in the match he plays versus Palace on the right-hand side, and then going advanced, coming to the box, as you'd expect. You spotted that when he played. Heung-min Son and Harry Kane both actually come drifting left, but probably have more of their touches central when Gareth Bale is playing. We did maybe see the shape change a bit there as well, with that being that front three. And they both have more touches in the area and more touches overall, but actually a lesser threat proportionately than in the Man United match, when they are less involved overall, but then maybe Tottenham were, but individually actually carried more threat, but possibly less sustainable based on the fact that their touches came a bit deeper and a bit wider. So from all of that, honestly, the answer is we're not entirely sure. But what I'd be looking to do is, note those trends down and see if they continue or change, and maybe that'll make my decision for me. In terms of moving players, we probably agree we wouldn't do it, but Gareth Bale makes them a better team.
Yeah, and the other thing, I've seen a lot of people have penciled in a move, as I sort of had, with Son out. But they were, maybe if they haven't got Fernandes or Salah, who are strong captaincy options this week, they'd had that move penciled in. But I just wonder caution now. Do they really want to go into that Sheffield United match without an attacking Spurs? So say Bale's in the team and he's going goal and assist mad, and Son is reaping the rewards from that. Even if Kane is out, I'd quite like to see Son in my side then. I think for me, it's the big thing is Kane's injury. If he's one of those ones where it's just where he's maybe out for 3 weeks, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. I mean, I'm not getting. It's not. There's no rumours of that, and so I'm not starting those rumours. But I just wonder, when is he going to be back? And he's a lot of money on the bench. So, for example, if I know he's definitely out, then Kane to Vardy, who is the man who's assisting Iheanacho at the moment, and with Leicester having great fixtures coming up, that makes that, I'd like to make that move, but it's just that removing Kane and then having to get Kane back in for that Sheffield United game. That's a lot of movement to be done, and we haven't got that many game weeks left, and I really don't want to be spending the final month of the season, which has been a tough FPL season, just worrying about, I want Kane and I've got rid of him and now I've got to get him back and all these kinds of things. And I just want an easy life, I think.
I mean, that hokey-cokey move always feels a bit... It can definitely come off. I've done it myself in the past. Yeah. I did it with Son and Salah earlier in the season. But it's almost like burning 2 transfers, not one. Because obviously, in and out. But I mean, with the first transfer, because not only are you making a move to a player you're then going to get rid of and want someone back, you are removing the opportunity of fixing another problem in your squad somewhere else and just holding on to that initial player. Yeah. So it could come off, but it feels like one of those lower percentage plays.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs do really well, to be honest, over the next couple of game weeks. I just think we can't discount. You can tell that things haven't been right in that Tottenham camp, and I think the fact they've sacked him at this point is quite telling. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if we do see a bit more of a free Tottenham, a bit more attacking, Bale playing. They might concede a few more, but I can see them doing well. So I think you're right, like you touched on earlier, maybe like an Ali or a Bale. It's something we shouldn't discount, and it's something, like you said, Seb, I think we need to see in the next week or two, and then maybe we jump on. But I could see it happening. I think they could do well.
I mean, what do you, if you're the new Spurs manager coming in, or at least interim, what do you say? You haven't got that long to prepare for matches. You just go, Harry, Heung-min Son, you are probably having the best seasons of your career so far. Keep doing it. I'm not going to tell you anything different. Go out there to the team. Okay, I'll try and organise the defence. Maybe I'll just pick a back four, goalkeeper, Lloris, obviously, try and go with that. But all you probably do is set them up and go, I'm not Jose. Go out there and show everyone why you deserve to be higher in the league.
I think you tell them to just go and enjoy playing football again, because they don't look like they've enjoyed playing football. And I think you do that, and I think you'll see a different Tottenham side. So I think you're right. I think we could see a very different team and better assets for FPL.
We're going to look at the next 4 fixtures and the remaining fixtures a bit later. But I think the point of talking about Spurs now is because it's quite integral. Because game week 33 they blank. So they're quite handy to remove. There's a lot of money tied up, a lot of value tied up with Kane and Son. But at the same time, as we've just been talking about, we don't really want to get rid of them because they've got that good run coming up and maybe a great attacking side. So it could. One of the problems I've had this season with Son is that without Kane, he's pretty much valueless. He's just a very expensive midfielder that's not doing much. But if somehow it's going to work in a system where Son is going to get the points he can get, huge 15, 18, 20 point type hauls, then I want to keep him. So another reason looking at that is because of the blank and double.
One thing I would just highlight on that. No, sorry, I lagged out after you, please. I apologise.
Okay. No, I was gonna say we're gonna talk about blank and double game weeks in a minute, but no. Seb, did you have something else to add?
Funnily enough, blank and doubles, great little thing.
We're going to segue in.
Just someone in the chat mentioning the free hit.
Okay.
Quite possibly. The free hit, where I do have my free hit, and I am missing my 3 City players, my 2 Spurs players this week. It'll leave me with a team of 9. I'm thinking I can cope with this potential double 35, blank 36, whatever it ends up being. That might be a better opportunity. I mean, if you've still got a wild card and a free hit or a triple captain, whatever, bench boost, maybe there are better opportunities. You could use it this week. But for me, with only my bench boost, free hit, I think I can deal with this week and I can get more out of the free hit in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, well, let's have a look at these blank and double games. Because I've got a bench boost, so other people have a free hit. I mean, you mentioned other people might have their wild cards. So luckily, Lego Mane and others within the community have been analysing the fixture list. And there's a couple of scenarios, but they basically still got the same outcome. We know certain teams have got a double coming up. We know that certain teams with a double will blank as well. We just don't know which way round it's going to be. So it could be a double game week 36. It could be a blank game double game week 35, blank game week 36. Could be a double game week 36. Could be double game week 37. Blanks could be fitted in around that. So what we might get. Fast-paced news, we opened the Scoutcast talking about fast-paced news this week could be the announcements of those May fixtures in which all of that will be revealed. So what we do know is that Spurs, City, Southampton and Fulham all blank in game week 33 and the doubles and blanks to be announced soon. So game week 35 is the likely this double, so we hope. And that's likely, this is what to say, likely to involve Villa, Everton, Palace and Southampton's postponed games. The FA Cup, which takes place in game 36, should likely to mean that Leicester and Chelsea and their opponent double, possibly in 35 and then blank. The blanks could be before though. So basically it just pays to be aware of the teams involved in all of this. We don't know when it's going to happen, but these are the teams going to be involved. So for me as a bench booster, and also without a wild card and without a free hit, the teams that interest me, unfortunately, are the teams that are rubbish as FPL assets at the moment. I'm sorry. FPL Prince is an Everton fan.
I'm leaving.
But Everton... Palace, Southampton and Villa, who, not what we would hope as FPL assets. They all look good for me as bench boosters because I don't have that wild card, don't have that free hit. I can bench boost them. And, the likes of a Villa defender, Everton defender, some cheap midfielder in there somewhere, Ollie Watkins. These are players that, I would like for a double on the bench, but I don't want to really remove Fernandes or these types. And Fernandes himself might get a double. So for me, they're good. They're good ones. But that's not to ignore the likes of, say, Leicester and Chelsea. There's a whole bunch of permutations there. It's looking like Villa's double game week, whenever that happens, won't be great. And it's looking like Everton's been marginally better. And annoyingly, it looks like Crystal Palace's could be amongst the best. So Crystal Palace, it could be something like Sheffield United, Southampton. Could be Southampton, Aston Villa. Or then they could have Sheffield United, Southampton, then followed by Villa. Do I really want any Palace assets? I don't know. For a bench boost, maybe. But it's a tizzy for me, and I think other people will be in similar situations. But I think if you've got a free hit, I think it's quite a nice situation to be in because you don't have to worry about this blank whenever that is, and I think that's quite nice. Yeah, that's my spiel. For me, logically I should focus on something around Southampton, Everton, Palace, and Villa for a bench boost, and I've got some of those already and looking to get others. But I'm not entirely convinced by that, and maybe I should just hang it and just get Alexander-Arnold, who's the best defender at the moment, who will come to attacking defenders shortly, and just hang it and just play the fixture right in front of me, game week 33. So that's the end of my spiel. Connor, what are your thoughts? What's your situation, chips wise, doubles, blanks, giving it much thought? What are you thinking?
So the first thing is, I don't know how you two still have a chip left. I mean, that's outrageous.
Because I'm ranked 200k, that's why.
Yeah, and I'm ranked about that as well.
Okay, well, I'm 50k, so not too much higher, but okay, fair enough. But yeah, it is a tricky one. I think in your situation, Joey, you are right. As much as I laugh, it's difficult for you because those teams are so unreliable in terms of FPL assets. Southampton, Everton, Palace, Villa, there's no one really there that really screams out to me. I think if I was really pushing to target one of those teams, and it may come across as a little bit biased, I probably would go for Everton. And I say that because I think with them going for Europe, and I think in the Tottenham game, they actually played really well. Probably the best I've seen them this season. If it wasn't for two very silly individual errors, they would have won that game. I think Sigurdsson's looking good. I think Richarlison is playing as a striker now, and he is getting chances. So, say if Kane is out, I honestly wouldn't be that against going for someone like Richarlison and then using the money elsewhere to get like a Trent if you don't have him. I think obviously you've got Luca Dean, but I have to be honest. I mean, the Everton defence is just so untrustworthy. It's not good. So I don't know if I risk it. If I was going to pick one, I'd probably go Richarlison. I do think he could be a good differential for the end of the season.
For a double game week as well.
The only thing with Everton, and
Yeah. Sorry, Seb, anything about Everton?
Oh, sorry, I think my lag is causing problems. Apologies again. That's the only thing about Everton. I like James. I like how he's been doing recently. He was very impressive the other night. We've watched them a couple of times recently on the Matchday Scoutcast with Gianni, Leicester, and then this most recent match. And they kind of keep doing the opposite to what I expect. So, like, they're solid when I don't expect them to be. They're potent when I don't expect them to be, or more often the opposite, which makes predicting it a little bit tough. Like, versus Leicester, they were pretty solid and then got cut apart a bit, but were decent going forward themselves. And again, we saw the other night, it was, two ridiculous finishes from Kane and probably defensive mistakes that let them in, and they looked decent enough. But then I've seen them do that so often that I just don't know what I could pick and be fully sure on. Looking at the fixtures, and you mentioned maybe that week doesn't jump out to you quite as much, just sorting by difficulty here. Have you looked at game week 37 if you have a bench boost? Because you then have the options of Liverpool, okay, Sheffield United, ignore them, but Liverpool versus Burnley, Sheffield United versus Newcastle, Leeds versus Southampton, West Ham versus West Brom, Wolves, Everton, if you still want an Everton thing. Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Man United have got Fulham in there. I wonder if there's more opportunity there to go grab the old, I don't know, 3 West Ham or 3 Leeds or 3 Liverpool probably isn't unachievable at the moment. And maybe get a bench boost out of that week. Of course, it's a little bit further ahead. We don't quite know what teams will look like.
I think it. I mean, my instinct with the bench boost is that a team playing twice will, you've got better odds of points than them just playing once. But also the other thing is the teams involved. Say for example West Ham. Now, I don't know if I want 3 West Ham. I want Jesse Lingard. I would maybe on a bench boost want Bowen, maybe, if Antonio's not back. But I don't know if I really want one of their defenders. Masuaku, maybe, but will he play? And it's one of those things. If it was a double game week, yeah, but for single game week, I'm not sure. But yeah, I do know what you mean. It's important, for me and everyone listening and watching to sort of move their mindset a bit and think, well, do I need to bench boost in that double game week? And so it's good. So it's something I will look into definitely, and look at those other fixtures and use it in a single game week that could be more advantageous. My instinct is not to, but I don't discount it. We have to be flexible. So yeah, good point.
I think just go back to Seb's point on you do make a good point about James Rodriguez, and I think James Rodriguez, probably for you, Joe, as well, is one to look at, just because basically Ancelotti's moved him. He was playing on the right, but he's actually moved him kind of centrally and a little bit further forward. He's on every set piece. He's back fit. They're going to have to play him whenever they can because they need to finish as high up as possible. The issue is, I think for you, Joe, because you want a double. Will he play both those games? Usually, I'd say no, but I think at this point in the season, Everton need him to play. He's the catalyst. So I think he could be a good option. No, and you're also right in the fixtures. Everton always do better against good teams, bad against the lower teams. So don't worry about fixtures too much.
So one of my mindsets with Rodriguez is that he is really good at home and less potent away. Now, we haven't got fans at the moment, so I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe, when he hears Zedkar's music, he just goes absolutely ballistic with Gold Pie. But
we all do, Joe. Don't worry.
They all go ballistic with Gold Pie once they hear the Zedkar's music. But without that 1960s police drama music, he just goes to pot. But looking at the fixtures, it's very possible there could be 2 away games. So am I right in thinking that? I mean, is he actually okay at away? As an Everton
I think you are right. I do believe there is something in him at home. I think he's been better at home. But again, I wouldn't put too much into it. I think he's missed so many games this season that it's hard to kind of call that an accurate kind of statistic. But there is something in it, but I wouldn't go. He can still do it away. I'm convinced. And he is really the focal point of the creativity of that team. So
I mean, this is a very tired comment now, but the home and away thing, even in the past, I've always treaded lightly with. And especially this season when you would argue the biggest factor fans aren't there. I mean, there could be something in it. But I'd want to dig further before I just lent on home and away as a reason.
If it makes you feel better, Joe, Everton are awful at home at the minute and fantastic away.
Oh, okay. So I've got to alter my mindset there.
So they're brilliant away.
One of the things I quite like to do towards the end of the season is sort of get those players that I haven't got but sort of should have done. And Rodriguez, I don't think I've owned him at all in FPL this season. And he's a good asset. So yeah, he is on my radar. It's just finding space for him, and I was hoping Son might make way, but it might be someone else really. But Fernandes is a player I'm looking at in terms of ditching. Not this next fixture, but coming up in the next few weeks. Because if Kane is still fit, Kane and Salah just does me for the captaincy. And Fernandes with Pogba in that more attacking role is slightly more shunted out in terms of an FPL potential. And Mason Greenwood is doing it as well. So I think we did on the captaincy video today, and I was saying that if so the last 6 matches, best players from those sides, which is Southampton, Everton, Palace and Villa, sorted by expected goal involvement. So the expected goal involvement there, Ward-Prowse, now that's obviously with penalties taken into account there, but he is statistically the best player to get in and he is cheap, 5.9. Then you got the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Sigurdsson at the moment, bearing those last 6 matches. So Sigurdsson is performing well as an FPL asset, whilst Calvert-Lewin has been out. Richarlison, who you mentioned there, Connor, is doing well. And then you've got some Villa. Villa, as I said, are likely to have poor fixtures, but nevertheless, if I was that way inclined, Watkins and Traore. Ings is still mucking around. Benteke is in there. You're starting to get lower down on here. You're starting to get into the Palace assets, Benteke, Milivojevic, which is because, obviously, penalties, Zaha. And then there's James Rodriguez, who's not pulling up trees with the stats, but nevertheless, he's created 10 chances, which is the same as Sigurdsson. So out of this bunch of players, is the best. And then Armstrong has created 7 chances. What I'm looking at that is not only do I not particularly want a lot of these players, but it's rather annoying that they're actually the most useful, handy players in. So it's good to put up in that people might look at them and think, perhaps I need an enabler. So perhaps they want to get Fernandes or Salah in, and they need an enabler elsewhere. Well, these are the kind of players you could be looking at: a Ward-Prowse, an Armstrong, even a Benteke, Watkins at Villa, so a bit more realistic there, 6.5.
I like Watkins.
Yeah, these are the sort of players you should be considering to think, well, who's going to be the enabler, the make weight, who could actually be quite useful in that they've got okay fixtures and a double. So they could be quite useful players there. But I've got another table here. This is a bit more like it. So this is like everyone. This is last 6 matches, but everyone. So these are the actual ones we should be looking at, really. So as I said, last 6 matches. So Antonio's obviously injured, but Kane is top there. So we hope that he's recovers from his injury, because he's so potent as an attacking force. Expected goal involvement of over 6. There's 7 big chances in total. But then you've got the likes of Iheanacho. So, instead of looking at these guys, instead of messing around with Benteke and Armstrong and the such like, I really should be focusing on these. I do have Iheanacho and Lingard, but that's just me. Other people might not. So you should be perhaps targeting them, really. They've got the form and they've got the fixtures. Iheanacho at the moment, and then Lingard is definitely towards the end of the season. Fernandes is still trucking along. A lot of people are going, Fernandes. I mean, I myself was saying I think Mason Greenwood might be a better asset to own for Manchester United. But nevertheless, 4 big chances last 6. Expected goal involvement just under 4 as well. And there's Chris Wood, who's still in my team, 6.3. His expected goal involvement just about the same as Fernandes. So there you go. But Salah, De Bruyne and Pereira. And Pereira is someone I'm very tempted by. I'm not quite sure where I would fit him in at the moment. But Pereira at West Brom, because he's a talisman in a West Brom side that's seemingly going for it. Newcastle players aren't showing up here. I expect them to in the next week or so, because they've been doing well. But I don't know if this has given either of you any thoughts really about players to go for instead of, do you target double game week players, or do you just hang it and just go for the best players?
I think, to be honest, in some ways, it makes me think, should I keep Fernandes? Because I think with Fernandes, we're not seeing the form, and you're right, Pogba isn't making a difference. And again, you're right, Greenwood is very appealing for the price because of the money you can do with that rest of the team. But we know what we get with Fernandes, and the stats kind of show it there. Like, he's still creating chances, he's still got high expected goal involvement. So it might not be a transfer worth making. I mean, Lacazette, I really like, but obviously I think he had the injury, didn't he, on the weekend? So I think that kind of rules him out. But I think he would have been a really good option. I think, Wood, no offence, Joe, but I don't think I'd be bringing him in at the moment.
No, fair enough.
I like you agree.
Yeah.
He's too risky. I think Rafinha for the final few games,
Yeah.
I think he's one we've definitely got to be looking at. I know Seb like Pereira, so I'll let you talk about him. But I have to be honest, there's no one really that screams out at me from that list. What do you think, Seb?
Oh yeah, you mentioned I like Pereira, and I do. His stats in the Championship were outstanding. His performances as well, and we've seen it this season. If there's good things to come, it comes from him. The only real issue for me, and maybe West Brom transcend this if they're fighting towards the end, but Villa, Wolves in the next couple is all right, but then Arsenal, Liverpool, West Ham, Leeds really isn't great. And while I'm not saying he couldn't get points, it's a game of getting more points. I don't know if I have room for him in my 5. I'd love to find it, but I don't think I do. And I don't think I need as well someone who's 5.4 when we have like Lingard only a million more and an Iheanacho and an Antonio possibly if he comes back up front. I don't think we're too strapped for cash. You mentioned Fernandez, Salah is low down on that table. They aren't screaming that I need them. So if I did need to spend money, it probably wouldn't be on all of them. We've seen in the past, your power 5s or what have you. I think it's the opposite right now.
Yes. We had a couple of questions. One about Phil Byrne asks, is it time to ditch City players permanently because of Pep Roulette? And also Nuclear asks, who are the best replacements for Lacazette? So we're talking about these two sets of players really who've got good fixtures, or they're like City, they're just sort of fixture proof. Now Seb, you've got a lot of City at the moment. Connor, I don't know, you've got a bit of City, and I don't know if you've flirted with Arsenal at all. What do we think? Is it time because of the rotation with those two, because of their European involvement, but just rotation and injuries as well? Is it just worth? Are you coming away from City?
It was probably time to lose them a few weeks ago, really, wasn't it? I think many people who had the wild cards or had the transfers probably did. For myself, I kept them simply just because I had more pressing issues, and that's been okay. They've obviously lost one fixture from the calendar now with the cup final, obviously missing out on that. De Bruyne, we think, will be fit. We hope will be fit. I have Cancelo and I have Gundogan. I'm not going to go and take, a -8 to get rid of all 3 of them or anything. I possibly would move Cancelo to maybe a Ricardo Pereira or someone like that, and happily hold on to De Bruyne and Gundogan for another week, just because if they do play, they probably have some of the better prospects. And I'm happy to slowly shift them out if better things rear their head, but I'm in no massive rush.
I think I agree. I think if you own Gundogan or De Bruyne, I think I would keep, because as we're seeing at the minute, the teams are very template. It's so hard to get a kind of march on anyone else. So if De Bruyne or Gundogan plays and does well, you are going to get those rank rises. I think the key is it depends on your bench. If you've got a bench that can cope with coming on, if one of them doesn't play, you're fine. I think the defence is a real issue. Stones is cheap, so it's not too bad. And again, if you've got a bench player, it's okay. But I think Cancelo and Diaz, even for his price, they're playing one game, missing one. It's just getting annoying. And I think when you've got players like kind of Dallas who are coming into good fixtures, I think moves like from Diaz to Dallas, it tempts me personally. So I'm sure it tempts other people. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I chose on my wildcard to not go with City, just because, as I said, I'm just keeping it easy the last few game weeks. We haven't got many game weeks left. I cannot be done with Pep Roulette at the moment. I can do with it most of the time, but also I've got a bench boost to think about. I can't be done with players that may or may not play. I've already got one in Alonso, and even though he's playing tonight, I'm partially regretting that, because I've essentially got a City player in, if you see what I mean. I'm getting a good attacking player that may not play. And of course they can't earn me points if they're not playing. So I'm looking elsewhere, and I think there's a lot of good players to go for, but I just don't know whenever Gundogan or KDB are going to play. So to me, it's almost irrelevant whether they're good or not. Stats wise, Jesus is the guy to get. In terms of big chances, he had 5. He's expected to be involved in nearly 4 goals. He's in fact scored 4 goals, created 8 chances as well. He's had 10 shots inside the box. And minutes per goal attempts in the box every 46 minutes, which is pretty good. Not really, really good. He's usually about 27, 28 when I look at these tables. So that proves there's either perhaps he's underperforming or there's room for improvement. But either way, I look at that and I think, do I really want Jesus? Will he actually play? Will there be a false 9? Will Aguero get fit and play? So for me, I'm just not. But I wouldn't say to anyone with City, like for example, you've got City players, both of you, and I wouldn't say not. I can't argue that they're a bad side or they're good players. Just for me, I'm just looking to keep it nice and easy.
I think the one thing with Jesus is there is no category he comes out on top in. He's slightly more expensive than people he might be matching in terms of stats or points. He's not the best City asset. He's probably not in the top 3 striker assets, even if you have to play with price. I don't know why I would bring him in over either other forwards or other City players.
Yeah. Now, defenders. We're going to move on because this is going to mention a few players. Well, let's have a look at that list. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a few City players there. But yeah, FPL Prince, you want to take us through this? Attacking defenders.
Yes, so with doubles on the horizon and attack and midfield looking very similar, defence could be an area where FPL managers can steal a march on their rivals. I think we've seen, haven't we? A lot of our midfield areas forwards are very similar, and defenders, there are a few kind of different types of players that we can target. So obviously, if we look at the table,
this is last 6 matches, by the way.
Yeah, so last 6 matches played, we've got Alonso top for expected goal involvement. I think that's expected. I mean, you own Alonso, Joe, and I think with Alonso, if you've got a bench again that can cope with it, he is a great asset because he can hit an absolute mega haul, and if you've got him for that game, that's fantastic. Cancelo I like, but I do think the starts are going to be too much of an issue at this point in the season, and obviously the one that's kind of the flavour of the month, and I don't own him. I don't think you do either, Joe. No. But Alexander-Arnold. Now,
look at those stats.
They are unbelievable, aren't they? So 16 chances created. That's so far above everyone else in the last 6. He's on corners, and Liverpool have been a little bit better defensively, statistically wise at the minute. So Trent is just, I didn't think he could keep it up, but I think the whole thing about with him not being in the England squad, I think Liverpool pushing for Europe, he's almost near like a must-own at the moment, and it's killing me not owning him. Just looking at some of the other players, Size Wolves have good fixtures. He has a little bit of attacking threat. Obviously got Luca Dean, my man, so on corners, 9 chances created. That's pretty decent, to be fair. It's pretty high up. Masuaki doing well for West Ham. Is there any other players that kind of catch your eye on the list, Joe? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I want Luca Dean to be good, but
me too. Don't worry about that.
He's 14 corners, created 9 chances last 6, and obviously a couple of clean sheets.
Do you know what the
goal
issue
attempts
with
won?
Yeah, the issue with Luca Dean is Luca Dean's delivery is unbelievable. He is one of the best at delivering the ball in the league. The issue with Luca Dean is when Calvert-Lewin doesn't play, there's not that player who's going to head it in the net. Richarlison is okay with heading, but Luca Dean needs Calvert-Lewin. If Calvert-Lewin's fit, Luca Dean will fly for the last few games. So there's one to keep an eye on.
I looked at this table and there were similar players a couple of weeks ago when I wildcarded, so that's why a number of them on there. I saw Alonso top, so I would have him. Alexander-Arnold is the player I've sacrificed, but Connor Cody I got in. There's a very small goal attempt threat there because his new role of get forward Connor from the bench. But it's Luke Shaw I got in, and he could have got a hatful in that last game. And I was quite annoyed he didn't, but somehow he walked away with nothing. But he's created 13 chances. There's almost Alexander-Arnold territory there, but corners 21. So these are all metrics to get points, and that's what you want from him. You want a clean sheet, an assist. That's going to bring bonus as well. And so there you go. There's your double-digit haul from a player that's like 5.5 million. There's a whole bunch of they're the sort of players I'm looking at. It's just looking at those sort of metrics. If Chilwell was nailed on, and if Alonso was nailed on, whichever one of those ones, there'd be good assets there. So Chilwell 10 goal attempts, Alonso's 14 goal attempts last 6. Sice at Wolves is an interesting one. Points at the whole point of this, isn't it? Is points at both ends of the pitch. Is can they get a double-digit haul? And I think that's where the differentials are going to be. So yeah, they're the players I'm looking at. And I'm saying goodbye to John Stones in my affections. I mean, he's been great for me for many months, but I don't know when he's going to start. But John Stones, 9 goal attempts. He's been a miracle for FPL managers this season. But yeah, that's the only ones I'm interested in, really.
One I quite like the look of, who isn't on that list, so I'll go with someone who has bad stats for once. It feels a bit dirty. It was our differential last week, I believe, Tom's, which is Ricardo Pereira.
Yes.
From Leicester. So he has a 0.38 XGI in the last 6, which is not too special.
No.
But he is playing further forward. Also, the thing that XGI doesn't capture is that he could have earned a penalty or had a tap in, and he got neither. Give him a 0.8 on top of that, if you like, and it starts to look a little bit better. But also, the thing I quite like is Leicester's fixtures. So they have Crystal Palace in 33, Southampton in 34, and Newcastle in 35. Then it gets bad, Man United, Chelsea, Tottenham to round out the season. But that perfectly matches with both Leeds and West Ham having a good final 3 fixtures. So while I wouldn't say plan too many transfers, if I got Ricardo Pereira this week, say for Cancelo, I could get 3 good fixtures. We think he'll play them all. We know it's not perfectly nailed on, but we think he'll play them all if he gets enough rest. And then I could move to a Dallas, a Cresswell if he's fit, or a Masuaku or someone along those lines. I quite like that as a little move that maybe earns me a few points other people won't get.
Yeah, I mean,
and I already have Trent as well, so I don't need to go there.
I mean, as we talked about, going to the start of the show is perhaps not making a move is the best thing. But if I don't make a transfer this week, I lose that transfer because I have 2 transfers. And moving Alonso on because he plays West Ham to a Leicester defender is something I'm interested in. I'm just not sure on Pereira whether he's the player he was last season. But yeah, that does make sense, and it keeps that place open. I mean, Alexander-Arnold is the one I should be getting, really. I think Seb, he's in your team, is that right?
Yeah, he is. I mean, a couple of weeks ago.
And he's the difference. He's the difference maker at the moment. Teams with him in their side have automatically got pretty much 6 points more than me every week. So over 5 weeks minimum, I'm looking at 30 points down. So if I can get him in, that's gonna because he's a relative differential at the moment. Still, his ownership is not that high. Because I think people like me just think, well, can't quite get him in and get these other players in.
About 16% off the top of my head, I believe.
Yeah, which for him is quite low. He didn't particularly damage my rank, but it's points I missed out on in order to damage everyone else's rank around me. So that's the one I would go for. But yeah, sure. I mean, sure, I like at the moment. I mean, just attacking defenders from big sides. So Pereira is on my, I will look into that definitely. So, but once again, thanks a lot for Seb thinking for me outside of the box a bit. And I wasn't thinking. I mean, I was thinking things like Schmeichel and stuff, and I was thinking, can I really, what is the ceiling of Schmeichel? 6 points, 7 points, whereas Pereira it could be 13, 14.
I would argue as well with Leicester, their defence. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, so I won't try and guess, but I feel like maybe not dissimilar to Everton. They keep conceding when I don't expect them to.
Yeah.
And so if you do have Schmeichel, you're immediately losing the thing you want him for. Like I say, Pereira's stats aren't too amazing, but I like where he's playing. I like that, his stats could basically have doubled if he'd won that penalty or scored a tap in the other week, and then he possibly appears on your list. So I like him as a bit of a, I'll get some defensive points maybe, or some offensive points.
Just a comment in the live chat. My live chat's back working, by the way. Lars Nielsen says, Joe, you don't lose that transfer, so stop saying you lose a transfer. So this is quite a common cliche in FPL when you've got 2 transfers. If you had the perfect team and 2 free transfers, you don't lose anything if you don't use that transfer. So going back to the beginning of the show, best to do nothing. But at the same time, the key bit there is if you had the perfect team. I do not have the perfect team. No one has the perfect team. And also there's a lot of double game weeks coming up and a bench boost to play. So I want to get in on that action. And also I want, better players than I have. There's always better. There's always room for improvement. So thanks for the comment though, Lars. And I do wonder if you've looked at my team and thought it's perfect, in which case, thank you very much. But I look at it and don't think it's that perfect.
I mean, it's a good point though. When we mentioned earlier, sometimes sitting on your hands is a good move. In terms of, you don't lose a transfer. I guess if you have no transfers to make, you could transfer yourself out of a good player. One of my better seasons a while ago now, I think I finished about 3,000th, was I enforced a rule on myself where I would take no hits all season. Obviously, in the end, there were a few weeks where it didn't look too pretty because couldn't take advantage of stuff. And you can't differentiate that from if I just picked a good team to start with, I need fewer transfers. So it's not a perfect test. but I definitely found myself playing differently and really savouring those transfers and making good, considered longer-term moves. So there's something to be said for don't force a transfer.
Hey, just on this, the live chats full of useful advice about that same topic. Stephen Fincher said that he once won a mini league by not using all his transfers, and he won on grounds of less transfers used. And indeed, I think last season I managed to scrape into the top 100k because I didn't use so many transfers. So that could be a good play there. So Lars and Stephen are starting to convince me a little bit there.
I believe didn't last year's winner not you take any hits as well? I think that's another.
So. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was one of the previous managers, Dimitriou, about 5 or 6 years ago. He didn't use his second wildcard because he liked his team as it was, which is exactly the point that Lars and Stephen are making in the live chat. He liked his team and he won it, so he clearly liked it. And so he didn't use that second wildcard, which is, it's quite annoying.
I mean, it's worth pointing out, obviously, that causation and causality there, where we're not saying don't use your wildcard and don't make transfers because you'll win it. Often you don't need those if you're already in a really good position.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a sign of being in a good position, and it's a way of thinking about it. If all transfers cost 4 points, we wouldn't make as many.
How many times have we made a move where if we hadn't have made that move, we'd be better off? Countless times every season I do that. So maybe I should just do nothing. Maybe we should all just do. That's not very good advert for FPL. Just get your team, set your team up, and just do nothing for 38 weeks. But
change your password and log out.
Yeah. But there could be something to be said for that. Let's move on to look at the next few fixtures, next 4. So we can see Liverpool at top, Newcastle at home they've got next, then Manchester United, but then Southampton and West Brom. Wolves still doing well, their fixtures don't turn for a while. They've still got Burnley, West Brom and Brighton to go. Villa have got a couple of good fixtures, West Brom and Everton. I don't know if they're that good, so I would make them a bit more on the red side there. Manchester United and then Crystal Palace. And then Brighton have got a mini run of good fixtures. They've got Sheffield United, Leeds okay, and then Wolves, and then before it gets a bit dicey with West Ham, and then Leicester, which is the point that Seb was making there about Pereira, Crystal Palace, Southampton and Newcastle next 3, and then Manchester United. But looking down right at the bottom, this is why Southampton got a double game week coming up. But do I really want a team with a blank? Leicester, Liverpool, and then one good fixture out the next 4. And then obviously there's going to be rearranged within that, but it's the fixtures around it really. You're not just playing for that one double or preparing for a blank. Newcastle, tough run. I mean they're in form now. They're getting into form. They're starting to get players back. They're starting to look a tougher side. And then hey press they got Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester and Man City. So hard luck. Fulham as well, blank, and then Chelsea, and then Burnley and Southampton. So it gets a bit better. But I'm not really looking at that. This one's in the middle really. Leeds, bad still, but then it gets better. And this is why Rafinha's on my watch list. Definitely Dallas still to get back in. Brighton, Tottenham and Burnley within their next 4. And then Burnley are still, I think, dovetailing quite nicely with West Ham for fixtures. They are indeed. So for Burnley, if you've got a Burnley and West Ham rotation going on somewhere in defence, you've got Wolves, Burnley, Fulham and Brighton within that. So unfortunately, if your rotation involves Lingard like mine does, you never want to bench him anyway. But it's quite handy to have. But I don't know, for either of you two, look at those next 4, you've got any thoughts?
I think 3 Liverpool it's got to be a must. I think the interesting thing with the Liverpool debate is, a lot of us kind of went Jota, Salah, and then one Liverpool defender, and I went Phillips. But he's been unlucky, but it's starting to get a bit annoying now. And not having Trent is killing me. So that's an interesting topic. Wolves, you've kind of got Neto, and then I don't know, there's not much else. Villa's so tricky to call without Grealish. I mean, Brighton, I'm sure you can tell us a bit more about Brighton, Joe. I mean, I like the Leicester fixtures, but Alcide, Nacho, Vardy, I mean, could go Pereira, like you said. There's a couple of alright ones, but I do think you're right. I think it's the middle teams. I think it's the Everton with a double game week and Leeds who I'm kind of going to be looking at, because I think the fixtures after this game week are really good, and I think now is a good time to use a transfer. I think Rafinha and Dallas, especially for the running, look great.
Yeah.
I think Richarlison from Everton. Those are the kind of teams I'm looking at. What's your thoughts, Seb?
I will happily pick up that Leeds bandwagon and run with it.
There we go.
I think we mentioned a couple of weeks ago when Joe was doing his wild card, maybe keeping some of those players on the bench if you could afford to do so. Your Rafinha or Dallas, Bamford, maybe you got Dallas off the bench for the City game. Very, very, very fortunate / skillful move there. But I like Leeds after this Man United match. We know what happened last time. We got taken apart by them, and fair enough. I don't think it'll be the same. We beat City very, very fortunately. We beat Liverpool. No, we didn't. We drew Liverpool. I wish we beat them. I was going to say, I think if anyone deserved it, we did. We pretty much doubled their XG in that match. We had 60% possession to their 39. They did outshoot us, but it was close on target, 5-7. We had 6 big chances to their 2. Bamford missed 3 of them, hit the woodwork once. So I'll take a draw. Not an unfair result. First half, they were a better team. I think second, we were comfortably the better team. We performed very, very well there. And defensively as well, I think when watching it, I think I remember the commentators mentioning something about like Leeds' defensive mistakes. I would argue rather than defensive mistakes, it was transitioning from defence to progressive possession, meaningful possession mistakes. We were defending pretty well. We were then just giving the ball straight back to Liverpool. So against a team who maybe can't press us as well as we can press them, and Liverpool pressed us, and one of our big chances in the first half came from us pressing Liverpool very well, I wonder if we maybe get back to a little bit of the leads of earlier in this season. That's not guaranteed. We so often see a team put in a great performance against a big team and then be disappointed against the weaker teams. But if you've still got those Leeds players, I'd definitely hang on to them now. And I'd keep someone in mind, a Dallas, a Rafinha, someone who's returned before. We know they can do it, and good fixtures are coming.
Yeah. What do you think, Connor, just for terms of your situation for the next 4?
I think I'm in a similar position to you, Joe, where it's kind of, I'm quite happy with my team, so it's really difficult deciding. I think the bigger issue for us right now, and this is kind of an issue when you've just played the wild card. I think one area would be good to get both your thoughts on, and we'll come on to it when we come to my team. But with Mendy kind of out tonight, I mean, that's looking like a problem area now. Which goalkeepers would you be targeting, looking at these fixtures? Who are the players you think, they could be a good... I mean, it might be good for Seb, but I was weirdly considering Meslier from Leeds, because I've noticed Leeds recently, they seem to have tightened up a bit at the back. So, yeah, what was your thoughts on Meslier, Seb?
I mean, I think you've covered it nicely. We certainly have tightened up the back. The numbers are slightly poorer in the last couple because City put in plenty of shots against us and Liverpool weren't shy either. Although, again, I think those quality of those shots were not great for how many they had, which is an encouraging thing for a defence, especially a goalkeeper. I really, really like Meslier. Now, real football doesn't necessarily earn you FPL points. I think he's really, really good. He's 21, I think. And I know he sometimes comes for crosses and flaps and whatnot. But my understanding is his instructions are come for everything. So he does. And he keeps doing it. And sure, he'll miss some, especially if he's coming for things he maybe shouldn't because he's been told to. But we saw last night he recovered quite nicely from one where he came, missed it, and then punched it over the bar. I think he's very, very solid when you're taking long shots at him or, he's given a reasonable save. And that's possibly all you can ask for. We look at someone like Emi Martinez. He makes brilliant saves. But what we want from our goalkeeper is a good enough defence and them to save the shots that they should save. We'll get our clean sheets. We'll get our save points for 3 shots. I think Meslier is sneaking into that category.
I think you're right. It's the save points that attracts me. I think because so many teams shoot so much against Leeds, even if they concede, which they likely will, you're still going to get a few points for save. So, I don't know, Joe. What do you think about the goalkeeper situation at the moment?
Well, the thing, those that have Leno thought, whoop-de-doo, I've got Leno, but Matty Ryan's come in. So that's the spectre of rotation. That could happen again. And Kepa is now, has he taken over from Mendy? He's done well so far in the Cup. But, that's carrying on. into the league. So he started tonight. So Mendy's just a nothing player for me. I think Martinez is the best goalkeeper. The next fixtures, West Brom, Everton, we've got Manchester United, but then Crystal Palace. He's always getting save points. I would argue he's fixture proof anyway because of those save points. So you're looking at a ceiling and a floor. You're looking at a floor of about 4 and a ceiling of whatever. He's 10 to 13 points. So he would be the one I want. I can't quite afford that. I've got nothing in the bank. Meslier is interesting, and that may be my move there because Mendy's just a nothing-key player at the moment. So I may make that move to Meslier because, as has been mentioned many times the last few weeks, Leeds fixtures do turn. They've been bad, but then they get good. And I'm not... Leeds are... I mean, Seb will know obviously much better, but for me as a neutral looking at Leeds in terms of all the other Premier League clubs as well, not having a particular vested interest and a special interest in Leeds, I've thought they've been better FPL assets in recent weeks because suddenly I think, I might get a clean sheet here. Suddenly I'm looking. So if Rafinha is definitely playing, Rafinha's amazing to look at. And when you've got players like that, you think, well, I'm going to get an assist or a goal here. I'm going to get a return. Not what will I get a return? I'm going to get a return, but what sort of return am I going to get? And so I like Leeds at the moment from the point of view of Leeds in good fixtures. And they've certainly got that towards the end of the season. So that may be the use of it. I mean, going back to Steve and Lars and all the people in the live chat who were saying perhaps you shouldn't make a move, but yeah, maybe Mendy to Meslier could be my move.
I'm considering it as well.
Well, there we go. I mean, it's Manchester United, but it's only Manchester United, isn't it?
I brought in Hugo Lloris last week, mostly because Pope and Martinez were my goalkeepers. Pope was injured, and their fixtures are poor, their defence is poor. Martinez wasn't versus Man City this week, which I think will be telling. He got 3 points versus Man City last time. So, we say he can get the save points. I want to see what they do versus Man City because their defence has got worse and it is kind of him holding that up. So to be confident in him going forward, and as you pointed out, they do have some decent fixtures in the next few, I'd want to see how they do in this city match. They don't need to keep a clean sheet, but I want to see something that makes me think they can get points. So I brought Lloris in and obviously doubles this week. One of the main reasons I did it, I needed to solve my goalkeeper situation as well. Then he's got a blank, but I've got Martinez on my bench, so he plays that versus West Brom. And then their fixtures to the end of the season are quite nice. So, I don't think I think he's more expensive than Martinez, or at least if you've got Martinez, Lloris would now be more expensive to bring in. So I don't know if he's top of the list, but he's maybe worth considering. We'll see what happens to Tottenham's defence. He does make saves as well, which is worth pointing out.
The way goalkeepers are going on at the moment, Joe Hart's going to get blooming game and replace him.
Yeah, fair.
But there's hope. But yeah, I mean, he plays. For the moment with goalkeepers, that's just who to go for. Let's move on to a differential. So yeah, Pereira was picked last week by Tom, and I went for Iheanacho the week before or so. So full Leicester compliment there. So it's FPL Prince's turn. So who is the best low-owned gems, 5% or under for the next 4 matches? Who is that?
So you remember, Jay, on my last Scoutcast appearance, I said Mason Mount, who turned out to be a pretty good pick in. I think. So there's a lot of pressure riding on this.
That was a good one.
It was a good one. I'm not 100% convinced, and it was actually really difficult trying to find someone that no one else is talking about. And I have gone a little bit biased. We touched on it very quickly earlier. But I'm actually going to go with Gylfi Sigurdsson. He was only 1.6% owned, I believe. I think with Calvert-Lewin out, he's going to play. And I think even if Calvert-Lewin comes back, I think Sigurdsson has actually been in really good form the last couple of weeks. He's on penalties, which is key. He's on some corners. And he's looked better to me. He's a bit of a confidence player. And he took his goal fantastically, I thought, against Tottenham. I think Everton will rely on him a bit more. And I think because I wouldn't have chosen him, but it's because of the double. I think because they also have a double, there's less risk with him. So I'm going to go with Gylfi Sigurdsson.
No, I put up the last 6 matches stats up. But these are the ones of teams with a
started
double,
4.
and no blank, of which Sigurdsson is the third best option behind, if they're fit and start, Ward-Prowse and Calvert-Lewin in terms of expected goal involvement. So yeah, and he's on penalties.
He is.
And he's looked great, but I wonder if he's. I mean, do you get the sense that he's good when he's nailed on to start and good if Calvert-Lewin isn't there, because Everton play in a different way. So Luca Dean's got no big head to aim at, for example, and so they've got to find goals in different ways. Do you think Sigurdsson is a better option without Calvert-Lewin, or is he still a good option if Calvert-Lewin's back?
It's a tricky one, I think, because Ancelotti has changed the team so much. There's not I don't think it swings one way, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think what you could say, I think with Gomez injured in midfield, and I think with Rodriguez moving position, I think Sigurdsson's more likely to play now, even with Calvert-Lewin back, more so than he was before. So yeah, I think with Calvert-Lewin back, it probably does help him, like you say, because there's a person in the box to tap the goals in, the headed balls from some of the corners he's on. So I think either way, he's a good asset.
Okay,
I would say.
Well, I could go for him definitely, because I want a good double game week player for a bench boost, and Sigurdsson's in the points.
Yeah, he certainly he's a risk. Don't get me wrong, but I think you've got to, at this point in the season, you've got to take risks, and he's on penalties. He should start. Decent fixtures, double game week. I mean, the things are there for it to happen, aren't there? Really. What do you think, Seb?
I guess I was thinking about you mentioned, whether he'll play with Calvert-Lewin there and whatnot. Thinking about how you line up, if it's a back 5 or 3, not so sure, but with the back 4, I guess maybe Iwobi drops out, Calvert-Lewin up front, Richarlison left, Sigurdsson 10, Rodriguez right, maybe.
Yeah.
Depending on the fixture, perhaps. Maybe share some time with Rodriguez, or do you think they both get enough?
Do you know what? It's so difficult with Everton, the formation, because they do change it all the time. But I think what's happened basically is that with Rodriguez on the right, teams knew to target that area. So I think with Rodriguez pushing into the middle now, basically means Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin play up top. And I think Sigurdsson is actually kind of playing on the left a little bit and cutting in. So basically, there's positions for Sigurdsson all across that kind of front 3 line. So that's what I mean. If other players come back, I still think he might play, which is what makes him, a good differential in essence.
I really liked the way Sigurdsson and Rodriguez were working together the other night.
Yeah,
I know we say the Everton performance maybe wasn't all that, but those two looked really, really good together.
They did.
Yeah,
and looking at their... Oh, no, sorry.
I was just going to say the penalty that Rodriguez won for Sigurdsson. I thought it was great. Great link-up play with him as well to get it. I mean, he could have even scored. If he hadn't been fouled, he could have scored it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of those two, just looking at the stats, when you first said Sigurdsson, my mind went to, why not James? He's over 5%, obviously, so fair enough.
That's right.
But actually, looking at XGI in the last 6, Sigurdsson 2.71. Okay, there's a penalty in there, but he takes penalties. Rodriguez down at 1.18. And then minutes per XGI as well, Sigurdsson pretty much halves him at 156 to 347. So maybe, even if you weren't looking at percentage, he's cheaper as well by about £1 million. Maybe Sigurdsson. I guess the question, as we've discussed, would be, can you trust him to play enough? But yeah.
It's a risk, but the stats are there to say it could work, basically.
Okay, well, let's have a look at our transfer and captaincy plans. So Lars is back in the chat. He's saying, after saying don't take a hit, make a move, he's saying, with your team, make a move, make 2, take a hit for God's sake. So here's my team. I'm going to take a hit for God's sake. No, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So I've got Mendy in goal, who may not play. Shaw, Alonso, who may not play. Veltman, who I'm quite happy to have. Who's playing Sheffield United. Phillips, who may not play. Then it gets a bit better. Fernandes, Jota, Lingard, Salah, Chris Wood, my favourite. Iheanacho, who I've got the captaincy on. So for more about that rationale, look at the captaincy video we did earlier today. He's statistically, in terms of expected goal involvement, the best player at the moment. Crystal Palace are statistically, in terms of big chances conceded, the worst team at the moment. So best player gets worst team. There's my captain. There are other options. I think he's actually better, could be famous last words, but I think statistically and eye test wise and opposition wise, he's a better captain than Fernandes or Salah, but they are both in my thoughts. On my bench, I've also got Kane and Son. and Connor Cody. So as I said, my main decision this week is: do I think Burnley will score? Chris Wood is on form at the moment, but do I think Wolves will keep Burnley out? I don't know. It's a bit of a muchness, really. I'm quite happy for Cody to be my first sub, though. I think that's a nice first sub to have. But I think in terms of moves, so I could just do nothing. I could just waste a transfer, and then I can sit back and tell my grandkids about that time that I lost a transfer and how a bloke called Stephen and Lars had a go at me about that. So I could do that. Or I could move Alonso to someone. And I could move Mendy to someone. And I could just... Because I've got 2 free transfers. So...
Do you have anything in the bank?
Got nothing. Zero.
Okay. So I guess looking at the team, my feeling is that... You mentioned there's a few players that might not play.
Yeah.
I don't hate having 10 this week. Everyone who's got Spurs is going to have some sort of, bench usage going on. So I don't hate it. If you lost a couple, maybe I'd be less comfortable with that. If it was Mendy, Alonso, I mean, you'd imagine Mendy probably plays next time if Kepa's got this one.
Will he get a clean sheet though, West Ham?
Yeah, true. So maybe the move I'd make if I were you, and this is just thinking off the top of my head, is maybe someone who can cover me this week and looks good going forward.
Yeah.
Because I guess your biggest risk this week is you end up with 8 players or something.
Yeah. So I think for me, one of Mendy or Alonso is probably going to go. I think what I like about Alonso is that I don't think that they're going to keep a clean sheet. But if he plays against West Ham's defence, I really like the thought of that. And if he doesn't play, then he doesn't play at all, and then Cody comes in. So I've got an okay first sub. But yeah, it's Phillips I don't think is going to play. I think the sensible play is do exactly what Seb did. Look at weak links and move on from there. So I've got a lot to think about. Leicester defenders are definitely in my thoughts. Leeds defenders are also in my thoughts. And I think, something will happen there because these are players I'm going to want a bit further down. Anyway, talked enough about my team. Connor, you have Mendy in goal. Then Shaw, Holding, Rudiger, Phillips, Fernandes, Salah, captain, Jota, Lingard, Vidra, who didn't play, but that may have been because of the Manchester United game tactically, and Iheanacho. And on your bench, you got no one. Got absolutely zilch. So are you going to make a move to give yourself a bit of flexibility at bench in case Vidra doesn't turn up, or Phillips?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a very sort of similar position to you, Joe. I mean, I've got no money in the bank. I mean, if I look at the weak links in this team or the worries, it's definitely, I'd say, Mendy, Phillips and Vidra. But it's really difficult to know first which one of them to go and then who to bring in. I mean, I think if I was to take out Mendy, I probably would go Melia from Leeds. I just quite like it. It's a little bit different at this time of the season. I really want Trent, but I'd have to take someone else out, and I don't know who. Vidra is cheap. I think you guys. I suspect I might actually be down to 10 because I expect one of probably Vidra, Phillips, or Mendy to miss out. So, I could do a pair like Fernandes down to Greenwood, and then maybe Phillips up to Trent, but use 2 transfers. That's something I've considered.
Hold the front page. Say that again, because that's
big move. But
I might consider that. I might. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Hold the front page as in it's a good news story, not as in hold the front page and man does something rubbish. This is like
that's why I'm the Prince.
Man comes up with good idea.
Exactly. Yeah, but no, I do. The thing with Fernandes though is I am a bit boring as an FPL manager as well, and I love Fernandes because he's just involved in everything. He usually gets at least an assist. He's everything I want. But if I look at the last 6 games, I'm not going to captain him. It's always going to be Salah or Kane.
Yeah.
Greenwood's in form. He's a streaky player. He did well at the end of last season. He looks good. So I could do Fernandes to Greenwood and Phillips to Trent. I don't know. Seb, tell me what should I do?
I guess the thing with Greenwood is up front versus right wing. Martial, Cavani and friends looked great in the last week, scored some goals and was attractive from an FPL point of view, but hasn't been for most of the season. admittedly, hugely small sample sizes. He's cheap, so fair enough. I guess you'd be gutted if you did Fernandes to Greenwood. Greenwood is bench or starts on the right. Fernandes gets a penalty. But hey, I'm not, that's, I don't think you should play FPL by thinking what happens if this side be gutted, right? You go with the better options. The thing that really immediately jumped out to me, though, and maybe you want to keep him, but Ruben Dias, you spoke about City players. He's not playing this week. You might need someone who can cover this week and then has good fixtures going forward. Do you do a Ruben Dias to Dallas has got Man United, it's not perfect, but someone like that?
That is exactly the other move I was thinking of. You read my mind. That is the other thing I thought of, because I am a bit fed up with the Dias and City players missing each games. I do like Dallas for the final few games, so I think the Dallas move is my safest one, and it means I go in with 2 free transfers before the doubles, which is what I'd like. So I have considered that. I do feel it's probably my likely move. That's as long as I think Mendy plays against West Ham, I think that's what I might do.
Let me give you my favourite little stats of the season. One second while I bring this up. It is Dallas versus Luke Ayling.
Don't tell me about Luke Ayling. People say, don't make early transfers. Okay, I was 0.1 million short of getting Dallas about half the season. I had to go for Ayling. Dallas killed me every single week. So anyway,
I haven't owned Stuart Dallas once, and it's not out of stubbornness. It's because it's just been a hard move to make. I have Luke Ayling. He's on my bench. He will stay there until I need him. But Dallas is the better option. Don't get me twisted. He is the better option. But Dallas has an XGI for the season of 4.97, which comes with 2 assists and 7 goals. Luke Ayling has an XGI of 4.56. So less than 0.5 less? He has 0 goals and 0 assists.
Just unlucky.
I'm not saying that he has to regress to that, because that's not how it works. But there is not as much between them as people think, and there's a big price difference.
Well, that's why
if you had to, I wouldn't hate it.
That's why Dallas didn't show up on the attacking defenders table last 6, because I sorted it by expected goal involvement. And so he's not showing up there because, as you're saying, he's arguably overperforming. He's still on my radar. I was just going back as well in the live chat. Bjorn has pointed out around Greenwood, if you wanted to go back to that move, that Martial is out for the season. So that's one threat down. And Cavani is getting on a bit. So he can't play that many minutes. And in fact, I do believe he actually asked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to bench him and to not start him because in the last match, because he couldn't, he needs
so
that
to be
rest.
fair, Martial being out for the season, that's quite a nice piece of information, because I guess even if Greenwood is displaced by Cavani up front, there's a good chance he starts on the right, and then maybe spend some time up front.
Yes, especially with Rashford.
What do you think about those moves for your team?
What was that?
So Jay, what do you think about those? What do you think about those moves about doing Fernandes to Greenwood and Phillips up to a Trent for your team? Because there's something you could do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, several times this episode, I've thought, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea, and so that is a good idea. It is a good idea because in the captaincy video,
like chat said, Joe, take a -12.
I should do in the captaincy video we did today. I was saying that if I was minded to captain a Manchester United player, it wouldn't be Fernandes, it would be Greenwood at the moment, and that's not just because he got a haul last time and Fernandes didn't. It's just because he's simply more involved in goals at the moment. And without Martial there, with Cavani, so Cavani's minutes are being managed, Rashford's 2. So you would imagine, is this going to be a Dan James game? Wasn't there a thing with James and Leeds? What was the thing that Leeds were trying to sign him?
Yeah. So he nearly joined, didn't he? He was about half an hour away from joining.
And he got gazumped.
I think it's in the documentary as well, so people can go see it. But he'd all but signed the contract. He had his photo done with the shirt and all that sort of stuff. And the opposition chairman pulled the plug.
So, I don't know whether that affects whether he plays or not. Because sometimes play.
He scored against us last time, I think.
Yeah, so maybe.
I think.
So he is an option up front as well, which would impact on perhaps. And Pogba can play up front as well. So within that 3, on the left, I think he's been playing, isn't he? It's just the nailed onness of Fernandes, and all it takes is a penalty, and then bonus, and suddenly you got 10 points. whether it's in extra time or extra time if it's playing Brighton. But yeah, you give me things to think about, and you've got things to think about with Diaz as well. You've got lots of options. Seb, looking at your 33 squad, so looking for the benefit of those listening to the podcast, you got Martinez. I'm going to come to your captaincy last, by the way. Martinez, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Luca Dean, Ayling, the mighty Luke Ayling, Jota, Rafinha, Watkins, and Bamford. So, Son and Kane aren't playing, and your bench isn't playing at all. So that's all City. And your captaincies are Alexander-Arnold. So the two questions is you've hardly got anyone, who are you bringing in, if at all, or are you happy to go with 9 players? And why Alexander-Arnold for the captaincy?
So your first question, I would be happy with 10. So I will probably be doing Cancelo to another defender. I could change my mind. I'm not sure, but I don't mind holding on to those players I've got. I'm not losing the Spurs boys, and I'm happy with De Bruyne and Gundogan at the very least. I guess playing 3 Leeds against Man United, especially if Rafinha isn't still fit, isn't ideal, but I'm not going to go and spend 8 or 12 points just to try and fix my team for this 1 week. If anything, I've kind of, by not doing anything, ended up with slightly different players. So if I am going to gain back those 100k places I've lost since everyone else wildcarded, it would be by keeping these players, not going and chasing the players that have already performed. And on Trent, pick a better captain in my squad.
Yeah, I can't.
Don't think there is one.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think the best captain this week is Iheanacho. I can't see him there, and I don't think Jota is quite captain material. He's great to own, but I don't think he's captainable. And Watkins, I think you do. I think he's the best, but that's not to say he's the best of rubbish ones. He's just the best. Let's go back to those attacking defender stats again. Last 6. He is. It's not just he is quite good at creating for Liverpool. He is Liverpool's creativity. He's the only one. So if there's gonna be assists there, unless it's one of those front players, it's really likely to be Alexander-Arnold. So 16 chances created last 6, 17 corners. Statistically, chances are he's going to get an assist if they keep a clean sheet. He's mopping up bonus as well. The last couple of matches, even though they conceded the last match, he ran away with, was it 8 points? So if
he got all 3 bonus, I think, and he only created 2 key. I think he only created 2 or 3 good chances in that match anyway.
I think I don't the rule of don't captain a defender I don't think applies to players like Alexander-Arnold, especially when they're at home to Newcastle. Even though Newcastle have been better recently. I still think you're looking at what's the floor. Maybe worst case scenario they concede, he gets an assist still. So 5-6 points. That's still okay, isn't it? It's still a return.
To be completely honest, I'm not even trying to be particularly maverick with it. If you look at the rest of my team, there's no Fernandes, there's no Salah, there's no Iheanacho from yours. I don't even think it's a case of I can be clever. What if he keeps a clean sheet and scores a free kick and gets an assist? That's a massive haul. I just genuinely don't think there's a better captain option. I think he's a better option than Jota, and I wouldn't captain any of the other players I've got versus the opposition they're playing. Yeah,
I don't. And also any players you would bring in. As we've spoken about at the top of the show, Son and Kane, you don't want to. Why remove them when there's that unknown that they could retain their excellent form, especially from the early part of the season.
If anything, I regret doing Bale to Jota a few weeks ago. Although, of course, couldn't have seen the sacking coming, and I think that allowed me to get Trent Alexander-Arnold. So don't actually regret it, but be nice to have him right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, looking at those.
Money in the bank, I was going to say. So.
A little bit, not a huge amount, just under 1, I think.
Okay. You couldn't do De Bruyne to Salah. Would that tempt you if you could?
I don't really. So I say I don't want to. I think that's the right way of putting it. I really like Kevin De Bruyne. I guess I want to be thoroughly proven that he's no longer a good option before I get rid of him. And I don't think I've had that proven to me yet. I don't necessarily think that's good advice for anyone else, but I would rather lose Gundogan and Cancelo first and hold on to KDB. And I don't think, if maybe it was moving him down to a Lingard because I needed cash elsewhere, but I'm not sure that's a pressing issue either for me.
Fair enough.
Okay, just before we go, I just wanted to ask Seb, just to check with the Leeds defence. My attitude is that they're quite good at the moment. I can't see Manchester United holding against Leeds. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, famous last words, but we conceded plenty of shots to City, but no particularly massive chances.
Yeah.
The few did fall to Raheem Sterling, who fluffed them. Liverpool, we didn't really concede that many great chances. Great goal, Trent over to Mane. That was a very good chance. But other than that, Firmino probably fluffed quite a good opportunity. There was a Jota one. We had more at the other end of the pitch and restricted them. Man United obviously play differently to both those teams. We saw them thoroughly take us apart earlier in the season, but we now actually have fit centre-backs and we have Stuart Dallas in midfield who makes a difference to our team. He possibly is the only player in our team who isn't man-marking. He seems to be doing a little bit of zonal marking, which with his effort, with his fitness and whatnot, with his tenacity, it really seems to be helping. And possibly we're seeing, I know we had a lot more possession than Liverpool, but in recent matches, we've had less possession. We've created fewer chances. I wonder, and this is just speculation on my part, but I wonder if the shift in the midfield in the last, it's probably close to a dozen matches now, of bringing Dallas in, not having Mateus Click in there. You saw last night as well, we were possibly poorer at working our way out of defence in possession, but actually better at defending and still decent enough moving forward quickly and pressing the opposition. If missing like a Mateus Click, Rodrigo, although he's not great against big clubs anyway, is possibly changing how we're using possession and how we're defending. So I think this Man United match will be very different. Last time, Scott McTominay scored 2 against us by running from deep and defeating our man-marking position. I think this time, Calvin Phillips might pick him up if he's not on Bruno Fernandes, but there's every chance Dallas would go with him. Whereas last time, the reason he was free is because everyone had their men and McTominay was overloading down the middle with Fernandes.
Okay. Yeah, so bit to think about there. It's just, I think with a team like Leeds, you have to, not assume that it's an easy Manchester United victory, but at the same time, not assume that a clean sheet's beckoning.
I think we concede. I think we lose. I don't think you captain a Man United player.
No. Okay, interesting. Just before we go, just want to mention the members area. So all those stats, all those lovely stats that we've had up, they're all from there. It's all Opta driven there. So tons of stuff there. And of course, there's the goal imminent table, which I always mention. But also, if you have liked today's episode, do press that like button. And also remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also wherever you hear this for your podcasts. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.